She's the pushy broad from the Bronx, New York.
Welcome, Transformation Talk Radio listeners and podcast listeners everywhere. My name is Ellen Stewart, and I am the Pushy Broad from the Bronx. Welcome to my show, Women Who Push for More. I'm delighted today to be with a woman who really is my best hope of showing you what a woman who pushes for more is really all about. I want to interview, and I'm going to do a little bio on her very, very briefly before I let her say hello. This is Debra K. Debra K is the CEO and CMO and founder of Well World TV. She is an Emmy nominated TV producer who currently has two shows, Senior Moments and The Journey into Wellbeing, airing on PBS. She's a keynote speaker, a published author, and a television host. Women Who Push for More and the Pushy Broad from the Bronx is very proud and happy to have a conversation with Debra K. How are you?
Good. I love one pushy broad to another. Push, push, push. I love it. I'm good.
I know exactly who to pick to be on the air, and I really do. And we were talking about this before. I put out a general post to people in many different groups across the Facebook land and Instagram land and Twitter land about the fact that I was very interested in hearing from women who, number one, could identify as a pushy broad, and number two, could identify as a woman who pushed for more. And your producer kind of got in touch with my producer, and that's how this happened.
That's how the magic happened. I was just in our pre-conversation, I was thinking how proud you must be to just be able to have these type of conversations all over the world with women who are just clear on their purpose. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're trying to make a change in the world, which is exactly what you're doing.
Exactly. And not only that, but some of these women are breathtaking and exciting and amazing, and they're all different ages. Debra, I've got this 24-year-old that is going to be on my show next week, who just backpacked the world. Wow. With nothing else, who lived in the tribes and the indigenous tribes all over the world, rode reindeers, climbed mountains. I mean, just amazing stuff. I mean, I'm so thrilled and honored because I learned so much by every single woman that I interview, and it's truly inspiring to me.
And I'm sure your guests learn just as much from you. It's like sometimes we never see the miracles that we help evoke in other people's lives. So I'm sure that's very reciprocated.
I really do believe that. And especially this time of our lives, with what's going on in the world, women need to be empowered and inspired, because I think we're really taking on a great deal.
Yes.
So let's talk about Debra, and let's talk a little bit about Debra's beginnings, because I know you've got some great stories to tell. So we go all the way back to the University of Florida? Where do you want to take this? How far back do you want to go?
Well, yeah, I think it's people kind of look at where you're at in life and they're like, wow, she's achieved all this success and, life must be easy. And, when I look back, there's been key pivotal moments. Not all of them were painful, but some of them were actually very painful experience that caused a crack or caused something to shift or caused a seed to be planted that you don't see it necessarily in the moment, but you see it in hindsight. And, I've traveled the earth over 50 times. And so I do have some reflection time where I can go back. So I can take you back to very critical moments that have placed me where I'm at today. And they were uncomfortable. I was a corporate business executive. I was a female climbing the corporate ladder in a male dominated work environment. And, talk about pushy. That's the only way I could be successful, is to push and take on more and show up earlier and work harder. And I was always the lowest titled and the lowest paid in the room. And, the cost of that was the higher that I went on the corporate ladder, the lower my health tanked, because I was making lifestyle decisions that supported my career, but they weren't supporting my spiritual evolvement, my mental health and wellness, and my physical body. So I face planted in a doctor's office, and I had all sorts of problems. Probably a lot of your listeners who are in that corporate grind understand they have, your gut constantly burns because you're not making good food decisions. You're gaining weight because you're sitting at your desk all day. You can't sleep. All these things contribute to face planning. So I ended up in the doctor's office.
About how old are we talking here? How old were you?
I would say this was about 13 years ago. So I was about 40. So I was, between the ages of 38 to 42 when I was at the peak of my corporate career and paying the cost through my lifestyle decisions.
And then you kind of had an epiphany. You mentioned to me a few minutes ago that for you, pushy and having pivotal moments came out of reflections of crises.
Yes.
Something happened to make it a pivotal turning point for you. And sometimes that does happen for us. Sometimes the epiphany moment is something where you've kind of walked in the light. But what you said to me is you've had to go through the darkness in order to get through the light.
Right. Yeah, there's been times I felt like I had to put on my, my high, tall waders and get through the muck so that I could figure out what epiphany was waiting for me. Because when things are great, when things are rolling and everything seems to be easy, you don't really have that opportunity to see what's stuck or what's still in shadow inside of yourself.
So what you're saying is you spent all this time in the corporate world realizing that it took you forever to get ahead because you were in a man's world for sure. You had to work twice as hard for less money for anything that you did. And then your health began to fail. So what was the darkness then that made you pivot?
So one of the critical moments that I see now clearly is when I went to the doctor's office and I was listing all my host of complaints. He was taking notes. So he was, okay, what else you got? What else you got? And I thought he was taking notes on my conditions. And the second I stopped talking, he rips out of his pad and hands me 5 prescriptions. And I was like, wait a sec. I mean, I literally felt like I had been punched. He didn't ask me about, exercise and nutrition and lifestyle choices. And one of the critical moments was when he said, oh, and I'm going to go ahead and prescribe you an antidepressant because I think you need that. And I was like, I'm a pretty upbeat, optimistic, hardworking type A person. I wasn't depressed. I was like overwhelmed. And I just envisioned millions of people like me marching into the doctor's office and then beginning their march to the pharmacy. And so I was like, I handed him back every prescription. I said, no, thanks. I think there's a different way. But what was planted in me at that moment was a critical seed to where I am today, which is I now held the desire to educate people that there were other choices to consider along with pharmaceuticals and surgery.
I'm really glad that you said that because one of the things I do as Pushy Broad is on Transformation Talk Radio. Viewers and listeners know me because once a month I do a show called Recovery Recharged. I am also 35 years clean and sober. So every single time that I talk to someone that is going through this, one of the number one addictions in this country, as we know, is addiction to medication, either pain medication or the abuse of the anti-anxiety or the antidepressant drugs in this country. The key answer is just like you said, to go into a general practitioner or an internist, your regular doctor, sit down and say, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. And with everything else that the doctor is giving you, it's very easy for him to prescribe either an anti-anxiety or antidepressant medication, which most people believe they should be taking simply because it comes from the doctor.
Right.
I'm so
they
glad
have that level of influence and credibility. So if the doctor writes you a prescription, you think, oh, that's the solution because he's an expert. And I was the type that would question that, and so I wanted other people to question that. And I'm not anti-medication. I mean, I've taken medications. I've had a full hysterectomy. So I do surgery when I have to. I just believe that there's all sorts of ways to be well. including doing like what you're doing, which is following your passion and your purpose, because that's helps with your overall sense of well-being, not just take a pill and everything's better.
That's right. That's right. And it's also understanding that sometimes medication does work, but it's not the only thing that does work. And understanding that it doesn't mean that it's going to be a fix. Nobody is going to cure that. And a pill certainly isn't going to make the whole problem go away. So if it works for a limited time, that's a wonderful thing. Not to
Right.
abuse it is also a wonderful thing. But understanding as well that there are alternatives, just like you said, and you've made your next career all about that there are other ways to feel the way you need to feel. So take us from there. What happened?
Well, I went back to work because at that time I didn't know my life had changed so significantly. So I went back to work, and my mantra at the time, and I was in the motor oil industry. So I was in the motor oil, and I was like, I kept saying to myself, if I work this hard for myself, there's no way I could fail. And so I had like a 2-year exit strategy. So I was, getting ready to take my big entrepreneurial leap. So I was trying to pay off my debt, minimize my financial risk, make sure I was saving just so I could kind of pad the net a little bit. And then the next moment hit when I went in for my annual evaluation, which now, and at the time it was painful because they were like, we're flattening the organization. You're the highest potential. We're going to give you this little token salary raise. You're going to take on the responsibility of your boss, but you're not going to get the title, unfortunately. And all of a sudden I was like, 2 years turned into 2 weeks. So at the time I was so angry, and I was so mad. And now I see that boss was my greatest gift.
Exactly.
It caused enough pain where I said, you know what, I'm out. And I took my leap. I didn't burn a bridge. If you're going to make that big leap in your life, don't burn a bridge, because you might have to go crawling back, which I thought I might have to. And I took my leap into the health and wellness industry, which is where I wanted to be.
It was amazing. You were in the motor oil industry. I mean, that's unfathomable to
I
me.
know.
Really, I mean, really, what were you doing there? Just give us a quick rundown. How does someone get there like you? Where does that come from?
Well, I was in marketing, so I lived in a small enough area that they didn't have like a lot of big corporations, and so Valvoline Motor Oil was based in Lexington, Kentucky.
I see.
And so I started after my daughter went into school, because I was a stay-at-home mom right out of college, and then I started my corporate climb. So I started at a TV station, I went to work for a hockey team, and then I went to work for a banking education program, and then Valvoline Motor Oil, and that was like the big guy in the town. If you worked for Valvoline, you were set. Like, I had a nice salary, I had nice benefits, I had the corporate job. But at the end of the day, I was like, do I really want my legacy at the end of my life to be that I help people have really fast oil changes? Like, I think
don't
I want
so.
something a little more, not that that's bad. It's not bad. I mean, everybody needs a nice, efficient, low pressure oil change, but I didn't want that to be my legacy.
So are you born and raised Kentucky girl?
California, Missouri, Kentucky, and now Florida. So, but I did spend 20 years in Kentucky. So yes, I have definitely that in my DNA.
Where in Kentucky?
Lexington.
Lexington. I have very dear friends that originally hailed from Paducah.
Oh yeah, I know Paducah. Even
So,
smaller than Lexington.
smaller. Shout out to my friend Frank, who hails from there. All right. So there you were in Kentucky and raising a family, you said?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, well, I went through a divorce, and that was part of the paradigm of me crashing and burning in my corporate career too, as I was a single mom. And so one of the decisions that, I take big leaps, like I'm a risk taker. The longer we talk, Ellen, you're going to say, wow, she takes a lot of risk. I was stable in my marriage. He had a comfortable job, but we weren't happy, and it wasn't going to work out. So the question that I asked myself at that time is, would I rather have my kids grow up thinking this is a normal, healthy relationship because that's what we're modeling? Or would I rather have them see me try to find love or a good, healthy relationship, possibly fail, but, at least see me make that effort to, establish something healthier. So I took the leap.
How long were you married?
12 years. Well, we were together 12 years. We met in college, we dated, we were officially married for 9 years, but it was 12-year relationship.
And how old were your children when you divorced?
So my daughter I was waiting for her to stabilize. So I felt like when she went into kindergarten, that there was more to her life than just our home. So that was when she went into kindergarten, I left the marriage.
Very tough thing. I left 2 marriages. I completely understand how you are. I don't have any children, but I know it's a difficult thing. And
Yes.
certainly it's part of then as a woman and as a single parent, you
Yes.
certainly have to push for more than
Yes.
anything else. So here you were, and now you are breaking away from your career, a divorced person.
Yes.
Yes. Which was especially hard because you really took a risk. You had something that was there and that was in front of you. But if it doesn't sit well with you on the inside, if your gut is telling you there is more and you're not happy, you're no good to anybody until you follow what's in your gut.
Yes. Well, that's critical. I think what you just said is so important because as women in particular, we think the more energy that we put outside ourselves to help our children, help our parents, help our spouse, help our boyfriend, whatever it is, that we're being a good person. But honestly, we're giving just a percentage of ourselves because if we're sacrificing our happiness, our purpose, our passion, our ability to positively impact people is diminished. Like if I had one message for women, it would be pull in that energy, become the most evolved version and brilliant version of yourself, because when you do that, your positive impact to those people that love you and the world in whole is going to be so much bigger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question. Almost every single podcast I'm in, I talk to and my YouTube channel, I always say to people, remember what it's like when you're on the airplane and the flight attendant tells you to put your oxygen mask on first before you're helping another human being. You
Yes.
always have to look at it that way. There's no question. But women get scared because they feel like selfish is a bad thing. And we're not talking about being selfish. We're talking about keeping the focus of attention on yourself, being the best person you can be, which automatically means the people around you will benefit from it.
Yes.
We change, the world around us changes. And as far as we know, we only have this life. So why live half a life? I always say to myself, be the best person you want to be, and you will automatically bring that to everybody else around you. So here you are, you let go of a marriage that wasn't right for you. You let go of a job that wasn't right for you.
Now what?
Manage, right? It's like,
Obviously, I
oh boy,
survived.
oh boy, oh
Now
boy.
what? So I was with somebody at the time, and he was a massage educator. And so I started researching the spa and massage world, and I saw that the attrition rate for massage therapists was very high. And there were 2 reasons: physical burnout, but also business naivety, because they didn't really know. They went to school to learn massage. They don't know how to run their practice. And so we came together and said, let's create an education and consulting business that's focused on the spa and massage world. I'll bring the business part. He can bring the massage education part, and we'll go transform the industry to the best of our ability. So that was my leap. I went from 6 figures to nothing. And from there, and it wasn't always fun. You talk about painful moments. How about I'm the business Sarge telling this massage therapist, get on the phone, make some sales calls. It wasn't all fun and games, but it worked. And we traveled all over the world. We visited some beautiful massage places and properties. I started to do some consulting. So I put my business hat on and was consulting. But there's another critical piece to this. I was moving in the right direction, but I always still knew I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing yet. So it was a good transition, but it was still that sense of this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing.
And you didn't yet know what that was, right?
No.
You didn't yet know. And that's another thing that women have to understand. We only have to start moving in the direction.
Yes, exactly.
We don't always have to know where we're going to end up.
Right.
Because women like to plan. I need to know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I need to know what's going to happen the next day. And what's going to happen 5 years from now. And what happens if this happens? And what happens if that happens? Right? We cannot plan that way. All we know is what we can do, what's right in front of us, and what's actually going to work. Okay, so
Yes.
on with the story, Deborah.
Okay, next critical moment, and everybody will appreciate this because I'm guessing it impacted a lot of people. So, Oprah Winfrey, right? Oprah Winfrey.
I might have heard of her. I'm
Right?
not sure. Yeah.
She made the announcement, if you remember this, in like 2010, 2011, that she was leaving her talk show and she was going to start a new network called OWN.
Yes.
And on her talk show, she said, hey guys, if you have an idea for a TV show, send it in. Send in your idea because we're looking for a reality TV show to place on my new network. And so in that moment, that dream, that desire that was initially seated at the doctor's office now transitioned into a sense of, if I was a TV show host, what would I do? Well, I would travel the world. I would interview acupuncturists and chiropractors and different cultures about how they stay well so that I can share that in a bigger way. And so that was another key moment, which hopefully I get to tell her in person someday, that she transformed my life like that, because like you said, I didn't have it all mapped out. I had never produced a TV show. I had never had on camera training. And somehow I'm like, I'm going to do a TV show. So that's what I did. I started to, there's steps. You don't, like, I have 3 TV shows. Well, it doesn't just happen, like that, like that's too big. So literally, if you think like, okay, what's the next step? Well, let me talk to some camera people. Let me talk to a production crew. Let me go talk to somebody who's produced a TV show. Like, those are just the little baby steps you have to take that start to push you in the right direction. So those are the steps that I took initially to be able to produce a TV show.
So obviously OWN accepted you into their network of shows.
Well, interestingly enough, I was so busy, I never submitted the show concept for her contest. But I had one loose connection to the OWN network. So fast forward a little bit, I had created the show called Journey into Wellbeing. So I had a one pager, which you have to develop a one pager that outlines what it is. And then I had a demo reel. So it was like 3 to 5 minutes of me on camera, interviewing different people, demonstrating what the show is. And my connection sent a query to the OWN network, and they accepted it and said, fly to Los Angeles, come into our station, and we'll let you pitch it to our program director. So I hopped on a plane, I flew to Los Angeles, and here I was, middle-aged, going on camera for the first time, pitching my show to the OWN network. That was 2011. I'm still waiting for a call back. So no, they didn't pick up the show. But just moments like that, like, I couldn't believe I was in the OWN network. I was like, you walk in the door and you're like, how does this happen? Like, how am I here and pitching a TV show? Like, to me, that was so crazy.
Exactly. Besides
so
the fact that,
crazy.
right. But besides the fact that, first of all, it was the epiphany moment for you, because you turned around and said, wow, there it is. Somebody's asking for exactly what I want to do.
Right.
I didn't know, but then there it was. It's almost like, I love it because it's almost like a God thing. It's always like a
Yes.
God thing that all of a sudden what you want is right there.
Yes.
So then you go pitch and then you go do, and then you get to the point where you actually get to fly out to LA and walk in to the OWN network,
I still can't
which
believe it.
in itself is it's an I'm fainting moment. Okay. It's like, I can't believe it. Please pinch me to see if I'm really alive. But then when you didn't get the call, for some women, it might have been enough.
Right.
It might have been, well, okay, can't do it. Not good enough. The OWN people don't want me.
Right.
Right? That could easily be the case.
Yeah.
And now I'm just going to go do what I was doing before and put my dream kind of, back in the box, and that's it. But you didn't do that.
No.
And that makes you a woman who pushes for more. So
Yes.
continue. Where to go from there?
Well, and I think your audience will resonate with this because, we often, we're our own worst critic. Like when you think about, why haven't I reached my goals, or why haven't I done that? It's easy to blame, oh, well, I'm a mom, or, oh, my husband is whatever, he's got problems, but at the end of the day, we put up most of our own roadblocks. Like we will sabotage, we will make excuses, we put up roadblocks. And so when I was getting ready to go on camera for the demo reel that I was shooting, I remember waking up at 4:00 in the morning, and my critical voice was in overdrive, beating the hell out of me, saying, you're too old. Why are you think you can go on camera? You're too old. You should have lost 20 pounds because the camera's going to add 10 and you're going to look like a pudgy, middle-aged ding dong, who's like, who are you to do this? Like, who do you think you are that you can do this? And it just beating me up over and over and over again. I had a camera crew scheduled. I had booked my interviews at a gym and at the park and, different things. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And there was a moment of silence. And what you said, that like something bigger comes in on occasion. I heard another voice that said, if you believe that this has the power to positively change and impact people's lives, who are you to not show up? And it was like, talk about moments. That was a lightning bolt moment that shot down my spine. And I was like, I have to show up. Like, I have to show up. Like, if I believe in this, nobody's going to show up for me. Nobody's going to save me. Nobody's going to make me good on camera. I may stink. I don't know. But if I don't go in and give it 100%, I have not given this opportunity a chance. And we sabotage. We will make ourselves small. We will sabotage. And, I look at that early footage and I cringe a little bit because it's not perfect, but I'm also really proud because I know I showed up.
I completely understand what you're saying. When we are in the limelight now, as you have been, and I have been, fairly recently, certainly not as much experience as you, but when we get to this point, we get what's known as the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I cannot possibly do this because I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if my credentials are good enough. I don't know if I'm worthy, all of those things. Like you said, I don't know if I'm smart enough, tall enough, skinny enough, young enough, whatever it is. We'll find a myriad of ways to tell ourselves, don't do it. We're not good enough.
Yes.
Okay. And we do call that the imposter syndrome. But then something does take over, just like you said.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a purpose greater than ourselves. And for me, it has always been my why. Why are you doing this? Not what you are doing, but why are you doing this? And if you constantly see your why, the universe just takes over. Whether it's God or the universe or whatever, but you had that moment. And you obviously went forth and did what you needed to do. So have you looked back since then?
Well, yeah, there's definitely been other other crazy moments, but as a result of that showing up, I mean, I can credit probably almost all of my film production success because I showed up in that 1 second. And so PBS did like the concept. And so I went and pitched, I took the exact same kit I had taken to the OWN network to PBS. And they said, we like you, we like this concept, you bring us a show and we'll broadcast it. So now all of a sudden I'm creating a TV show, and I'll fast forward a little bit. So I have, independently produced 3 television shows. 2 of them were picked up and broadcast and are still being broadcast on PBS years later. And, I had all these great signs that I was on the right track, because you don't find content like this. If you turn on your cable network, where are they interviewing an organic farmer or an integrative medical doctor or visiting the state park? And, like, I held this vision that there were all these brilliant personalities and places that needed to be showcased, but you don't really find that type content, on TV, even today. You get the doctor talking, talking head doctor show interviewing, but where's that in the moment, like down in the dirt with the farmer, picking the greens off of the farm and listening to her tell the story of how she transitioned from conventional farming to organic farming, knowing that that's going to inspire farmers, hopefully all over the country, to follow in her footsteps. And so I did it, and I produced my first show for PBS called Journey into Wellbeing. And then I produced another one on healthy aging, which we were talking about, pushy broad, you said sometimes has a negative connotation, and you want to transition that and saying, that's a positive personality trait. Well, my second show was called Senior Moments, and people were trying to talk me out of that title because they're like, it's such a negative connotation. But I was like, I'm going to interview seniors that are having fantastic moments. And so I wanted to flip that word and make it into a positive. So when you were talking about the pushy broad thing, I was totally resonating.
You're absolutely right. I love that. And I really, I'm thrilled about that. I really am. So tell me, what have you learned from the shows that you've produced? What life lessons do you take with you?
Well, I think, just being able to travel and interview people and showcase them was so meaningful to me, because I felt like I was contributing in a bigger way. Like I posed myself as a health explorer. I wasn't the expert. So I was finding the experts to feature in a way that would educate the viewer and inspire them to think about things differently. So to me, that was, I broke into tears several times during my interviews, because it was so overwhelming to hear people share their story and think that you contributed to that in some way. So that was very powerful. But there was another critical conjuncture. I saw the barriers in traditional television. So it's time consuming, it's very expensive. Getting picked up by a network is like 1 in a million. And I was meeting all these amazing people, and I felt like I started to leave people behind, because I couldn't feature them in my 4-segment TV show that would take me 2 to 3 years to produce. And I was like, okay, I think I can change the world in a bigger way. And if I keep producing TV shows at this pace, I'm going to be in my 90s before I have enough content to actually impact anybody. So in 2018, I started to think, how do I remove the barriers? So if somebody holds a desire to up level, share their message, share their brilliance, they're not going to follow this path that I did, more than likely. How do I remove the barriers so they can share their message in a bigger way? And that's where the seeds for Well World TV started to form in my head.
Okay. So you still have the shows on PBS.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
You've learned from PBS that you were able to bring some amazing people to the surface.
Yes.
And to get their message across, which also helped to kind of reinforce your message that you had more to give. And you had to do it in a totally different way.
Yes.
So how does one actually start that process to their own, TV network? Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Right. How do you go from producing a TV show to starting your own network?
Right. And I know you're not Oprah. I know that. Okay.
Right.
You don't look like Oprah. So I
No.
know I'm not talking to Oprah. So how really?
Well, I'm just my nickname, some people call me the bulldozer.
No,
Pushy
no, no, no,
broad,
no, the pushy. Oh,
bulldozer,
absolutely. 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 I know that you're a pushy broad. I mean, really, come on.
in
I know that you are.
the kindest way possible.
Well, look, I'm changing the whole dictionary definition. So it's the highest compliment I could possibly pay you, one pushy broad to the other. So go
Yep.
ahead.
Well, the cool thing about the modern world of media, because I was very entrenched in traditional media, is that whole landscape is changing. So with the launch of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and all of these platforms, I knew, and this was just 2 years ago, that if somebody held that desire to share a message in a bigger way, the gateway was social media. Like anybody can start there. It's not going to break the bank. They could literally, if they put a little thought into it, they can have their own interview show within a week, and be, here we go. I have my own interview show. I'm the host, and they're ready to rock and roll. So I knew the gateway was social media. That didn't exist, whatever, 10 or 15 years ago. So today's world, you can have your own show in a heartbeat. And I have onboarded hosts to the network who have never pushed the record button. And they're a little rough to start.
It's really amazing though, isn't it? It's really amazing.
Yeah.
It never ceases to amaze me. Really. I don't know how people are bored. I can't figure out how people aren't enthralled with this on a regular basis.
Right.
Especially when you get to be a little bit older, just a little bit older.
Mhm.
And we know what we had before as opposed
Yeah.
to what we have now. It's an amazing thing. So, okay. So tell us all about Well World. Tell us all about it, what it's like, what it's done for you. Give us an idea. The
Okay.
mission,
Well,
the goals, all of that.
I think, for those who are listening and really have dreamt about bringing their dream to life and making a career of it, because that's an important mix. Like a lot of us have passion and purpose, but we do it as a side hobby. I did that for a long time. When the concept for Well World TV started to solidify in my head, it was the first time in my entire life where I felt like I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. So I was fully aligned that finally, after 51 years, this is it. Once you're that clear and your gaze is elevated, your intentions are bigger, it's hard to quit. Like it's not easy. Like when you're creating something from nothing, you're going to have roadblocks. You're going to have side rails. You're going to have, days where you don't want to get out of bed because it's exhausting. But you're so clear that you get up and you keep going and you keep moving forward. So for me, I knew that online was going to be really important. So I built the website, wellworld.tv. That's the hub. I knew my non-traditional distribution channels would be social media. So once a host starts to upload their content into the website, we push their content out to social media. So it goes to Facebook, it goes to YouTube, it goes to Instagram. That's not a traditional network's way of distributing their programming. They're used to doing it, turning on your TV, you have a TV show and there you go. I'm trying to corral it in the social realm first. And then the next space that's really exciting and should be exciting for you and also for your viewers is what's called over the top programming. So now you can bypass your cable network with these smart televisions and go search and find content of interest. So that it's on Roku TV, Fire TV, Amazon TV, Apple TVs, like all of those televisions allow you the ability to not just watch your cable, go find good content. And so all of these networks are popping up as we speak. I partnered with somebody called Glued TV. And I mean, they have a contract with Samsung and they're looking for good quality episodic type television content. But the exciting thing is you don't have to pay $40,000 to $50,000 to get a 22-minute episode. You could pay a couple $100, and have an episode that's now in over 4 million households. So that is the second phase to Well World TV, is starting to get my hosts out of the social realm and into higher level content that's now being distributed through that OTT space, which is the future.
Amazing. So how successful is Well World TV? When did it start and how successful is it?
Well, I feel like a transitional moment for entrepreneurs, and I was doing an Instagram live about this morning. So for those of you who have traveled the entrepreneurial path, there's critical moments to your long-term success. So a lot of us have an idea for a business or a concept or something, and it just stays there. Like we don't take the action steps to actually bring it to life. So the first step for entrepreneurial success is when you see it come to life in the physical world. And so a year ago, my first draft of my website launched and went live. And it was more of a placeholder, like this is the concept, this is what it's going to look like. I had onboarded some hosts, I had some content, but really it was just like just a physical representation. And then 2 weeks ago, my brand new website launched, and it is completely different. So it's like YouTube. You know, you can, once I onboard a host, they're able to go on the back end, upload their episodes, their graphics. They have a whole, I mean, it's much aesthetically more beautiful than YouTube, but it gives them that customized, I'm a host on Well World TV sort of VIP sense of having their content housed there. And so I feel like, to answer your original question, I feel like I'm in my toddler phase. You know, I'm not running, you know, I'm not running a marathon yet. I'm still, you know, in that early phase. Right now, what I'm looking for is great content, because before I can attract a lot of viewers, I have to have good content. So I'm really developing content creators and starting to get content going. I think I was on the website this morning. I think I have like 13 series that are represented on the website. And I have probably about.
I lost you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
You said I have about 13 series and then I lost you. So
Yep. I have about 13 series and about 10 hosts that are uploading their content as we speak. And we'll see those kind of come to life over the website over the next month.
So this is where your calling is. This is what you have found.
Yes.
And this is what you see doing
For till I'm 95 years old.
till you're 95 years old. Okay. And what would you describe as the mission of Well World TV if you were to put it into a few words?
I would say to draw together a collective of like-minded people whose gaze is elevated and want to join a platform to inspire people's healthy transformations.
So the kind of hosts that are with you currently, what kinds of people are you attracting?
I have also, this is the fun part, because I haven't actually advertised. So I feel like, again, there's a higher sense of who's showing up, like you know, who's just showing up. So I have Ayurvedic doctors. And another thing I love is the diversity, like the level of diversity that is showing up naturally to me is just amazing. Like I view people as souls, not as, you know, height, weight, age, color, you know, any of that. So I have mindset coaches, I have Ayurvedic doctors, I have chiropractors, anti-aging doctors, I have meditation teachers, I have a PT who does medical grade yoga, business coaches, having conversations with supplement companies, you know, like people that are proponents for CBD. I have one gal who represents the HPV Alliance. And so she just does Laughs with Lillian is her show in New York City. And, you know, so it's just all these bright lights. I just view them like as bright lights, or just showing up kind of organically, and will be the first round of early adopters for the network.
That's marvelous. So what have you learned from this? Give us some words of wisdom that we can pass on about how you've pushed in your life and the kinds of lessons that you've learned.
I would say one of the most critical things I've learned is that, you know, don't wait until you think it's perfect, because I tell my hosts all the time, if you're not a little bit embarrassed or a lot embarrassed of like your first video attempts, you waited way too long. Because I see people wait. I see people wait to get the right equipment. I see people wait to get the right look. I see, I'm not quite ready yet for this. And it's, again, that's that self-sabotage. And the best thing you can do is just take the next step. You don't have to go for the gold nugget right out of the gate. Just take the next step. Just practice. If you dreamt of sharing your message on video, just capture yourself on video.
That's exactly right. No, and I understand what you're saying, and this is, I can also relate to this from firsthand experience. For me personally, 3.5 years ago, although I had done regional radio for a while and I'd done commercials on radio and I'd done audio books and all of that, the whole video medium was something new to me, but also the podcast medium was new to me because radio is not podcasting. And I have been a coach for 11 years, and I've been in recovery treatment for 16 years. And I was working with one of my clients. My clients and I had parted ways. We were ready to go. And she turned around to me and she said, "Ellen, I wish I had you in my ear when I needed you."
Hmm.
And I was like, and she said to me, "You should do podcasts." And I was like,
Oh,
wow.
that was your Oprah.
Wow. There, the angels started to sing, the sky
Yeah.
opened up, there it was, the light bulb over my head, the whole thing. It was that epiphany moment, genuinely an ephany moment. And that was in 2016, or like you said, a powerful year for you, a powerful year for me as well.
Yes.
And was a tough thing. And also I came from working in a very highly paid position. And then all of a sudden that was gone.
Yeah.
That was completely gone. And I did my coaching kind of on the side and in kind of a part-time thing because I loved it and it was a passion, but it wasn't a full profession. It was a part-time profession. And then I said, you know what, coupled with that and the things that I can impart upon people, I went into podcasting. So I did that and I have been doing that successfully for 3 years. And then I realized that there had to be more because it wasn't enough for me only to do that. I had more of a message to send, not only with the people that I was talking to, but the message that I needed to send on my behalf, on my own behalf. Just like you need to send a message when you bring people in, well, world is a message that you have sent on your own behalf. And that for me was the idea that a pushy broad is somebody that needs to be proud of who she is. Always proud of who she is, which is why for me, the word pushy means powerful and unafraid, self-aware, hardworking, young at heart female, which I know you can relate to.
I love that.
And having that and showing people and opening it up to other women who are resonating with it and having a chance for people to see you because the TV medium, the video medium makes the greatest impact, no matter what. It makes the greatest impact. So if you get the word out there and you get that feeling out there, it's a wonderful thing. But still, as you get closer to your actual dream, you get scared to death.
Right.
And it's being actualized.
Right.
Right? It's like,
so
oh my
big.
goodness, it's so big. I've actually dreamt this in my head. And now this dream is now a reality, right? Just like you said, when you went through that Oprah thing, oh my God, I can't do it. I don't know if I can do it or whatever. And that's how people feel on the eve of making that happen, right? Like the eve of walking down the aisle or the eve of buying a new house or right. Oh my God. So you just think of yourself at the edge of the pool on the diving board with your toes at the edge, right? Exactly. At least holding your breath, closing your eyes, and knowing, if nothing else, that you can swim. Just knowing you can swim.
Yep.
And then taking the plunge. It took me a year to launch the actual podcast because of the fear that you talked about. I needed to be perfect. I need to make an excuse. It has to be the right thing. It has to be this. It is only our self-sabotage that makes it where we need it to be perfect. So I completely relate to what people are saying. What else can you tell us? What else have you learned?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll kind of share the story from 2016 when I was
Sure.
producing my second television show. So the concept for Senior Moments started to, land in my head around I wanted to do a show on healthy aging. And so I had already put some production on the calendar. One of my dreams was to tell the founding of the spa industry. So I had already scheduled a trip in July to Rancho La Puerta so I could interview the 95-year-old godmother of the spa industry, Debra K. And, you have to schedule that stuff pretty far in advance. Well, on February 15th, I was in Fort Lauderdale at a speaking conference, and I got word that my father had taken his own life. And for me, that began what I consider probably the worst year of my life. So my father, made that decision. I made peace with that over time, but I also had to navigate a horrific estate situation, no will, and just I was the executor. And so it was like, in my opinion, it was like one bad thing after the next. I lost a pet. We were evacuating for a hurricane in the fall, and my cat passed away, which she was my soulmate for 17 years. And I was like, if I did not have this show booked, I would just crawl in a cave, be depressed, eat a lot of crackers, and not show my head until I felt better. And I couldn't. I didn't have a choice. So I traveled and went ahead and facilitated the production for my TV show, including telling the story of Debra K and the founding of Rancho La Puerta. And I went to the Mayo Clinic. I went to Dollywood. I went to all sorts of great places to highlight seniors having great moments. And it was but I didn't feel like it. I can remember being in Minnesota at the Mayo Clinic and telling my creative director, the camera guy, said, I'm just not my best self on camera. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing justice to this concept because I had a horrible year. And then it was in the spring after the show was launched that I found out that the segment on Rancho La Puerta had been nominated for an Emmy Award. And it was just one of those moments where it was like, out of the darkness, if you can just keep going, keep your gaze elevated, keep doing what you're supposed to do, there are bright moments that come out of the darkness. And for me, that's a pivotal one, not only because I wanted to tell that story so bad, but the fact that it was acknowledged in such an amazing way, that was a moment for me.
Absolutely. It becomes validation. It becomes a message that you're on the right path and you're doing the right thing, because the universe has a way of telling you, by rewarding you, by showing you how many people you have affected and how wonderful it was that you did that. It also gave you the healthy distraction you needed to pull you out of the depths of grief and depression, so that you didn't spend the next 2 years in bed with a cover over your head, taking the antidepressants that the first gut doctor wanted to give you from the beginning, right? It's very easy to go back and make that happen.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about health and wellness? How do you practice that and live that in your everyday life? What kind of a regimen do you have that you tell your listeners to have? Who are you, Debra? What do you do?
Well, it's so funny because when I first started to think about creating, Well World and my TV shows, I was like, well, you need to have a definition. You need a definition of what health and wellness. So I was like, okay, well, let's see. Okay, there has to be a certain level of fitness. You have to eat a certain way. You have to, it's like I started to make a list. And I was like, well, wait a minute, maybe that diet doesn't work for somebody, or that fitness program doesn't work for somebody. And I got so clear that, if there's over 7 billion people on the planet, there's over 7 billion definitions of what well-being really is. So my job was only to get as much information out into the world as possible. And so that people can maybe they looked at 100 segments and only 3 of them will resonate with them. That's great. Take those 3, so to me, it's just a matter of, what makes you feel well? Is it following your passion and purpose? Is it being in a healthy relationship? Is it doing hardcore weight training and functional, workouts? Or, maybe it's doing yoga and taking gentle walks by the ocean, so I just think that I think for everybody, it's just a little bit different.
So how is it different for you? Give us some tips as to how you live your best well world.
Movement has definitely become a part of my life. And, when I like to work out and do hot yoga and things like that. So when the world shut down, I'm fortunate because I live in South Florida. So every day is pretty spectacular. So I get out and I move my body at least 5 days a week, 3 to 4 miles. I go to the ocean, I look at it. I have a sense of starting my day right. I have a kind of morning rituals. I don't jump out of bed and just get to work. I like to make a really great cup of coffee. Maybe that's not on everybody's well-being plan. I love it. Makes my day right. And then I try to do a little reading and just put a little space before I jump into the workday. Because I feel like I'm aligned to what I'm supposed to do, I don't feel like I'm working necessarily. So I don't feel like I'm sacrificing my time at a job because I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's a big part of, feeling well and being able to navigate the ups and downs. I keep the people that are closest to me. I have a lot of connections. I don't have a lot of maybe intimate relationships. So those are the ones that I really put a lot of value on. I have a little grandson who's 2.5 years old. That little boy is everything.
That's so marvelous.
Those are the components of my wellness.
That's fantastic. And the fact that you tell me you're a grandmother is really
Yes.
interesting. So whatever you're doing, it's really, really working. It's a marvelous thing. Any special diet that you can share with us? Anything that you do?
Well, I kind of have the 70-30 philosophy. So 70% of the time I watch, and for me, because I've had food allergy tests, I know I have a gluten sensitivity. I know I have dairy. Like if I eat dairy, I can feel it all up through my sinuses. And so I know I have a negative reaction. So I try to watch gluten, dairy, eat a little more plant-based during the good times, the good choice time. And then when I'm off the rails, I like nachos and French fries. But there's a healthy balance in that. So if I start to head down the road of too many nachos and French fries, I can feel it in my shorts. Then I just go back to the other side of the fence for a while.
Well, I know that your viewers and my listeners and my viewers are very interested to hear about what Debra K does specifically, because not only do we want to know what's happening with the hosts that are going on and how you are as a CEO and a CMO and founder, but who you are personally is really important to us. And certainly your journey and your entire development is something that is very much something we can resonate with. So that's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much. If you have some,
if you don't mind, I have one more tip because this is a critical,
yes,
especially if you're a little bit older. So if you're 35 plus, sometimes things start to get off inside your body, and it doesn't matter how hard you work out or your nutrition plan, you're just off. So I would recommend, and this changed my life a lot, to go to like an integrative anti-aging sort of functional medicine clinic, have very intensive blood labs drawn because they will show you your hormones, your food sensitivities, your vitamin levels, because those things you can easily address, and they just almost bolster all of the efforts that you're making externally in your fitness and diet. Because a lot of people just think, especially at our age, I'm over 50. So I can tell you my hormones are out of whack, naturally. And that will sabotage fitness and nutrition. So get yourself straight on the inside. And then, yes, make the efforts that work with you on the outside, such as food and nutrition and, connectivity and soul level development.
And work just as hard about pushing yourself to get the stuff well on the inside as you do when you push yourself on the outside, is basically what you're saying.
Yep.
Push
Absolutely.
hard for you to make these changes and understand, like you said, over 35. That's 70% of my listeners on Transformation Talk Radio. Go out and get the kind of checkup you need, especially now. You have to be in great health because it really helps us in this world and what's happening now. And as we go into a new year, so the healthier you are, you're saying,
Yes.
the better we'll be. All right.
Yeah.
One final word to our listeners today. One final word from you, Debra.
I would just say that, if you are in that moment and you don't feel like you're doing what you're supposed to do, hopefully you took some thread of inspiration from my conversation with Ellen today on just take the next step. You don't have to launch the art studio tomorrow, but just take the next step to really explore something that will move you in that direction, because you'll be surprised at the energy and support that when you're on the right track will bolster your actions.
Fantastic. Debra K, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being a pushy broad and a woman who pushes for more. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're an incredible interviewer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is Ellen Stewart, the pushy broad from the Bronx, saying thanks for listening. And remember, everybody needs a little push.
From the pushy broad from the Bronx, New York.